let's jump into it and start it off with the Cardinals at the Vikings. Minnesota laying 3.5. The total on this one is 45.5. I think the Vikes have survived their relative mediocrity. Let's be honest. This was not a team that was going to run the table. This was not a team that was going to finish at near the top of the NFC standings. They are in the playoff mix pretty strongly now. I think they're going to survive that. The Cards, more in question as we forecasted. Hench embraced them, then he abandoned them, and then they looked like they turned it around. But then the Seahawks got them as we predicted they would last week. I say here the Vikings take care of business as well. Minnesota 24, Cardinals 19. Hench, how say you?
Yeah, Cardinals laid an egg in Seattle against a very good team. But the Vikings have been playing not that great and winning. And I think this is the week they play not that great and lose. I like the Cardinals in this game, 24-20. Cardinals obviously very Jekyll and Hyde. I just think this is the week they move the ball and Kyler and Connor and Marvin Harrison get it done.
I'll tell you that this is an example of, and obviously the season isn't over yet. I'm devil's Dameshecking myself, I guess. But, we talked about the fact that Seattle was going to turn it around, but it was going to take a minute for them to do it, for Mike McDonald's defense to really get established what he wants to do. Geno is good. It's the week to week rise and fall, but McDonald's defense really is starting to tune it up them, and they may well end up taking this NFC West. Spaghetti, how say you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same thought process here as Hench. I think the Cardinals playing at Seattle, which hasn't been the best home field advantage all season long, finally got a game where they just dominated them, and I think it's like a stinker. They'll kind of get over that. I think looking at the Vikings, especially starting with that game a few days ago, the Bears stormed back in that game after probably the worst stretch of Caleb Williams' young career, and he finally looked like the Caleb Williams you saw a little bit maybe in October there. Kyler Murray, the same kind of quarterback, mobile. Caleb Williams made plays with those legs. I think Kyler Murray could do that. Plus, what Hench was saying too about they haven't really looked good in their victories. Like going back to that Jets win that kind of like shocked everyone. They played the Lions, the Rams, two of the better teams at least we think in the NFC. They lose those games, and then it's Colts, Jags, Titans. So it's like nothing has been that impressive. I think the 3.5 points, whatever it settles at, I would take that with the Cardinals. So I like the Cardinals to win this game.
Now that I think about it, as I was stumbling to say the coach's name from Seattle, it occurs to me this is very much like Coming to America. It's McDonald versus O'Connell. It's a lot like the late John Amos and what he was fighting for with Eddie Murphy and all the rest of it. All right, let's move on to Queen City. Steelers, Bungles, home team, laying 3. One team is in first place. The other is outside the playoff picture. And yet that team is the one that is favored, giving 3 to the visitors from Pittsburgh, PA. The total on this one is 47. There is no more wiggle room in the AFC for the Bungles. As we told you, the Dolphins are getting better. We have ignored them a little bit. It's because of Tua's concussion, but when he's out there, whether you like it or not, he makes that team a viable playoff participant. I think Joe Burrow gets where I think that he has, to a significant degree, really had his way with the Steelers, and I think he does it again here. 29-21. Cincinnati survives this one and stays in the playoff mix here. Hench, how say you?
I'm going the other way. I actually, I know there were that crazy result in the snow, but in that crazy result in the snow, there was the bizarro 3rd and 4, gotta have it. If you convert, you probably win the game. They put Fields in, so you're like, okay, it's going to be something semi-conservative, but it's going to take advantage of the thing that he does better than Russ. Nope. He's going to throw a go route down the sideline. And I got to believe that's not what Arthur Smith wanted. I don't think that's the play. I don't think you put Justin Fields in to make the throw that Russell Wilson makes better.
As far as that goes, to get hyper specific about last Thursday, I think if you're going to put Justin Fields out there, you have to have him throw the ball some of the time, or else it's transparent every time he runs out there. And they are in the lead with 3-ish minutes left in the game, right? 3.5-ish minutes when he uncorks that throw. Um, I think you have to, I don't know about a deep ball in that spot, 3rd and 4. I assume he sees George Pickens is singled up on the outside. That's where he is supposed to throw the ball. I'm with you, though, because for as much as I've diminished Russ along the way here, he was nails on 3rd and 4th downs in that game. So to take him off the field in that spot was very weird to me. I hear you, and they probably, well, I don't want to say probably. I don't know that Russell converts that one on 3rd and 4, but I don't know that he throws that deep ball. And if he does, obviously he's proven he has a better knack of finding George Pickens on those deep balls than Justin Fields has this season. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted.
So I don't think that happens again this week. I don't think Chris Boswell misses a field goal this week. All the things that had to go wrong for the Steelers to lose that game in the snow won't happen again. And you said it a couple of weeks ago that Bengals defense just isn't very good. I mean, that they storm back against the Chargers, and you're like, okay, they've got them. They came all the way back, and it's like, no, your defense sucks. So I think the Steelers move the ball, win this one 27-24.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cincy is not an easy spot, but they still got to go to Philly. They still have to host the Chiefs on Christmas Day. The easiest game they have is the Browns in Pittsburgh, and the second easiest one is Cincy in Pittsburgh. And if Cincy wins this one, then the next time they play, Cincy is still playing for a playoff spot, so it'll be an important game. The Steelers can end that and win this game, get themselves to 9 wins, and then the future looks a little bit brighter because then they would have both teams from Ohio, and neither team would be playing for much when they come to Pittsburgh. Spaghetti,
except that the Browns will now be playing to prove George Pickens wrong. To some of the greatest post-game bulletin board for no reason, just no reason. I'm going to say you guys suck after you beat me. That's always the best way to do it, Pickens. Well done.
All right, break the tie here, Spaghetti.
You got to know where I'm going with this one. I'm not, going away from my Steelers here. I know the Steelers are getting the field goal. I don't even need that. Take it on the money line. Starting with the game last week here in the snow, it was a joy to look at. I know for you, Shek, you probably couldn't enjoy it because it was your team playing, but it does affect how you run your offense. Like Russell Wilson's great at throwing the deep ball. Like that, the screen was white. Like you could not. I'm sure on the condition of the field, like it was probably horrific for those guys. I think I'm not going to say chalk this up and forget about it, but to me, it's like if this was played in pretty normal conditions, I think the Steelers win this game. On the other side of things here with the Bengals, they have probably the least, impressive wins. They beat the Giants, they beat the Panthers, they beat the Raiders, and they beat the Browns. So it's like I'm not. It's kind of like we were talking about Shek before with the college football teams, like Oklahoma. They're this brand, so they must be good. The Bengals have Joe Burrow, they must be good. They're not good, and hence you're pointing at their defense. Their defense is god awful. They give up so much points. The Steelers' offense isn't the highest scoring offense. They're pretty middle of the road, but I think this will be one of the highest scoring outputs, even on the road, for the Steelers this season. Easy. Take the Steelers on the money line in this game.
Well, maybe I'm the one overreacting, as I always caution everybody else. Don't just look at the last piece of evidence as the be all end all. The Steelers have been largely good. But all of a sudden that loss against bum Cleveland has now turned, I think, the majority of national media against them now, that the future is not bright, as I'm talking about specifically the playoffs, but also even the AFC North. Now, after the Ravens win, everybody is back on Baltimore like that game in Pittsburgh never happened 2 Sundays ago, and the Ravens are back. I heard declarations from national credible voices talking about one thing you're not going to do to the Ravens is bully them around. The teams that give them the most trouble are the ones that might throw the ball over the head. And the Bengals, a team like that, isn't even going to make the playoffs. So I think the Ravens. Do you remember what happened in Pittsburgh? That's exactly what they did. The Steelers didn't score a touchdown, and they just manhandled them. I mean, they really just beat the Ravens up. But never mind, the Ravens are now back on track and a media darling thanks to Lamar Jackson, who is now back in the MVP chase, except for the fact that in my book, the NFL MVP is heading to Charm City down Philadelphia way. He's bringing Jalen Hurts and the rest of his pals with him. Here comes that Eagles defense. I'm talking about Saquon Barkley. The Ravens are laying 2.5 in this one. The total is 50. I think the Eagles get them. I think they should be able to have their way offensively. I think it's going to be a shootout, 34-30. Philly gets them. Hench, how say you?
It was so funny because when we were doing our picks last week, I was talking about how the Eagles just wear you down, and it doesn't matter what Saquon has done up until that point in the fourth quarter. He's going to pop one. It seems like a
I was
weekly
thinking of
occurrence
you when
now.
he did that. It's just a
And
matter of
then
time. Like you
and
have
then
to
it's
have that
like
in the back of your head.
the difference was Sunday night. He was already having a huge game. Like he wasn't averaging 3 yards a carry when he popped one. He was already dominating, and then he broke off the huge run to put the game away. I think this is the sort of Lions Chiefs alternative Super Bowl. This is the Super Bowl if it's not Lions Chiefs, and I think the Eagles have been playing great on both sides of the ball. I do think the Ravens have figured something out. I think they get this one 30-27. But this is the game of the week. And it's going to come down to the last possession.
Listen, people consider me or people hit me up on social media to tell me that the Ravens can never do anything that I would appreciate. Of course, that's nonsense. But I mean, if you watch them play the Chargers on Monday night, which I assume you didn't, it was probably 3:30 in the morning for you, Hench.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you see the same things that take the Ravens down in some games. Lamar Jackson hits a deep shot with whatever it was under a minute left in the first half after they go for it from their side of the field, which was kind of a loco call, but it worked out for Harbaugh in that case. But it's a deep ball that, if the DB flips his head a second earlier, it maybe is an interception, and that never happens. It's all on a razor's edge. I know all pro football games are, but with the Ravens, that's especially so. And, unless they get the number one seed somehow, which there's not really a chance that there's no path for them to do that. Again, we're back in the same, but you think that team's going to win 3 games against obviously good AFC teams? Color me skeptical with the back end of that defense still being a liability. Spaghetti, how say you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a bath after this one because I'm feeling gross talking about it, talking up the Eagles team. But I think this game, I don't think it is going to be close. I think the Eagles, I wouldn't even take the field goal. Again, I would go on the money line with them. Why? Because the Ravens, their kryptonite is their pass defense. Justin Herbert in that game last night, he needed he had 1 second. He drops back. He had 1 second. There's a guy in his face, and then his receivers they can't hold him the football. Why they gave up both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, I'll never know. This team, I don't think is really the Chargers team. I don't think they're really that. Their record says otherwise, but I think they're still ways away from being a legitimate contender. And I think the Ravens just kind of had an easy game last night. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to have the easiest game of his season. Jalen Carter is playing his way into the POY Player of the Year. He's just that good. So many teams passed up on them, the Bears included. I don't know why they did that. Their young DBs are playing very well. And if everyone thinks it's going to be a Saquon game again because of what he did last week, I think it's going to be an A.J. Brown, Goddard, a feast because of how bad their back end is for the Ravens. I think the Eagles are playing very, very well at the right time. And I think the Ravens, it's okay to lose a game versus a good team. The Ravens are fine. But I think last night was really not indicative of how, they're not going to roll over teams like they did with the Chargers. So, yeah, I like the Eagles in this one big time.
Man, that's an interesting point you make about Jalen Carter because, TJ Watt probably doesn't get it because he plays on Thursday Night Football and doesn't do anything against the Browns. And then Myles Garrett just endlessly campaigns openly, as do his teammates for Myles Garrett because they win nothing else. And so the thing that they have is, we have the Defensive Player of the Year. But if you set that aside, maybe Jalen Carter could get it. I don't know if the numbers are there to support it, and people tend to pivot off of that. But man, he is a dominator in there, and maybe is the difference in this one. And Hench is. Oh, by the way, quickly weigh in on that, Hench, before we move on. Saquon MVP right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of have long-standing been sick of the QB prejudice. Please give it to someone else. And it sucks that anybody who plays any other position has to be so much better. It's like a challenger in a title fight. You got to knock the guy out. It's like Saquon is, when you look at the balance of power in the NFC East, and it's like, say those tree trunk legs have taken that balance of power to Philly. And I think he has the signature play, obviously, of jumping backwards over a guy, and he's
Hmm.
got the stats, and they're going to win the division, and yeah, let's give it to Saquon instead of splitting hairs between all the very good quarterbacks who who are having great years. Just switch it up. Let's go.
Right. It's right. The thing that the curmudgeons then turn to is like, yeah, but everybody knows quarterback is the most important position in football. Yeah, yeah, we get that. But what margin has Saquon created that makes the Eagles that much better than they were last year versus what Lamar Jackson is doing with this Ravens brand or Josh Allen? I think the Josh Allen claim is the strongest one at this point if it's not Saquon. But I mean, I think we're getting in our own way, but not we, the people who insist. I mean, in other words, if you can't consider Saquon right now, obviously there's some distance to go here before it's all wrapped up. But if you can't see a path that Saquon is the MVP now, then just make it a quarterback award. Then you need to carve
Most
it
valuable
out and stop
quarterback.
calling
Yeah,
it
exactly.
because it's dumb otherwise. You mentioned that's an interesting point, Hench, about the alt Super Bowl, that if it isn't the obvious ones, the number 3 on this list, at least going into the season, no longer true, is Niners at Bills. The Niners at this point are not even in the playoffs. They better start winning some games here if they want to get into the mix. Buffalo comfortably in there, and they're laying 6.5 at the time of this recording. Total on this one is 46. The Niners, I guess you give them some grace because they've been so banged up by injury, but you know what? Every team has injury, so what are you going to do about that? I think that the Bills in a big spot here. It's just a tough one. I don't want to throw out trying to find the middle. I've had a mixed bag of success trying to do that one. I think the Niners go in there. They understand where they are. This is a high pedigree bunch who knows that 5-7 really, really, really puts them into jeopardy of missing out on the postseason tournament. I think that the Bills get it 24-23. Hench, how say you?
Obviously last week you kind of have to throw it out with Purdy out, but there's just something wrong with the Niners. I don't know. Like you go, well, C-Mac's hurt to start the season, but Mason looks great, and then it's like, well, then Ayuk's hurt, and it's like, and then Kittle's out, and then Purdy's out, but then Bosa's out, and just like it has this feel of like the window has absolutely closed on what was supposed to be multiple championships for Kyle
So you
Shanahan.
don't think in 25 they bounce back? You're
No,
saying they need
no. I think
to some
C-Mac turns
degree, move on.
29 next year. I
Hmm.
mean, like, I don't know. It has that feel of like this was your window and it just closed on your fingertips. And the
Hmm.
Bills, we keep, we keep writing off the Bills, that it's like guys can't keep leaving, but it's like, no, that stud at quarterback just keeps them in every possession.
Levels it, right?
I mean, that scamper against the Chiefs, it's like he's just he's one of one, and it's very different. Like, Lamar's a burner, obviously, when he turns the corner, but like I don't even understand how Josh Allen rips off 25-yard runs. Like you're huge and you're kind of lumbering, but people aren't catching you anyway. I think this will be the death knell for the Niners season. Bills 30, Niners 21.
Yeah, I say the Niners show up, do as well as they could possibly do, and it's just a tick short there. Spaghetti, lay your pick on you, and then I got what I think is a good question.
I was this close to saying, you know what? I think Purdy comes back. I know Kittle just got back from the injury and he looked okay. I was like, they're getting 7 points. Even they're on the road. I'll take them. Then I thought, you know what? Let me check the weather in Highmark Stadium on Sunday night. And the high is 34 degrees, the low is 27, thick cloud cover with snow showers up to 2 inches of snow. This just falls right into Josh Allen's hand, and I echo everything that Hench was saying about Josh Allen and his play. I mean, if I had to give the MVP award, and I agree, it should not always just go to a quarterback, but I just feel like they purposely made this team worse on both sides of the football, and somehow he's played better. And then him winning that game versus the Chiefs, not that he needed to, but it just feels like that big game monkey is off his back, and the Niners don't really have an impressive win this year. And I just feel like this is a really really bad time for them them after that loss. Missing Purdy, I understand, but then going on the road to Buffalo in bad conditions when Josh Allen's probably feeling as good as he's ever felt in his NFL career, I just really don't like how this game's going to go. So I actually would lay the 7 now with the Bills, just because based on the weather, it just plays into the Bills' hands.
Okay, we're fairly close, but a big difference there since I have the Niners plus the 6.5 there. All right. My question for you is this. I mentioned doing some stuff for Meadowlark. My meditation this week that you should have in front of you by now is, what if in this age of, the quarterback league, never more favorable conditions to be a quarterback in the league, what if you brought the guy who is the cautionary tale or otherwise for I'm big on QB wins, but one of the 5 best QBs of all time is Dan Marino. What if you brought him right now to the Miami Dolphins and you put him on that roster, as good as Tua is? Is it an Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes situation, and Mike McDonald actually benefits to the point that is a team that can run to the Super Bowl? How say you, Hench?
Well, Marino's got to be in his 60s now, right? I mean,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Yeah, we saw Tyson. That didn't work out.
Yeah, it would be very much like Tyson, Jake Paul.
Yeah.
No,
I'm talking 84. I'm talking prime Marino, friend.
I mean, Hill and Waddle are similar to Duper and Clayton.
No, they're better. And they're better than the Marx brothers.
They are better. And they would definitely, I mean, Tua's damn good when he's right, obviously, as he proved against the Patriots, lighting them up last week. An upgraded quarterback. The defense has been very good. It's funny, the defense got better when Tua came back too.
Yes.
Defense played great against the Rams. Obviously, obliterated the Patriots. They would be a contender with a 25-year-old Dan Marino at the helm.
Who's better, Spaghetti? See, this is unfair. You're too young, probably.
I'll weigh in on that too. I think obviously Marino had a couple injuries. I think too his lack of mobility now, or a willingness to be mobile because of his head injuries, is a big negative. And also, he's a lefty, and Marino's a righty. That it's easier for NFL coaches to, like, for blocking schemes and routes and stuff for a righty quarterback. So I would 100% make the switch.
Sure, you make the switch. I just wonder how far Marino could run him.
It's going to be devastating for Tua when he gets benched this week for Dan Marino. Wow.
The other side of it is, I was going to ask it to Spaghetti, but to be honest, not a knock on you. It's just your age and how much football you didn't watch in the mid-'80s. Hench, if you sent Josh Allen back to the Buffalo Bills, of, let's say, as Jim Kelly is rising up and they get Thurman Thomas and Bruce Smith and all of that, does that team win the Super Bowl? As good as Jim Kelly was, did Josh Allen get them over the hump in one of those 4 Super Bowls? I know
Jim Kelly was a Hall of Famer,
90s.
but Josh Allen just adds that element where it's like, oh, there's nothing open. I'm going to rip off an 18-yard run and run over a linebacker in the middle of it. So, I mean, obviously those Bills teams certainly should have won the first one. I think they get that one with Josh Allen and probably 1 or 2 more.
Anyway, foolish conversation that I love to spend just hours and hours and hours considering. Let's move on to the next game in the here and now. It's the Chargers. It's the Falcons, 2 teams I've been high on for the last 3 months or so. Falcons letting me down, though. They're not going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they may not even hold on to the NFC South at this rate. They're a home dog here, plus 1.5 at the time of this recording. Chargers heading over there. Total is 47. I think the Chargers are going to win this game. I think that was a weird little stumble. Not a weird stumble. Obviously, the Ravens are a real good team. I don't know what they're going to do about the J.K. Dobbins situation, but I do think that they can survive this game, and I think they will. 22-20. Hench, I'll say you.
I'm in your garage. I think it's actually more comfortable than that. I think Quentin Johnson's only going to drop 2 passes this week instead of 3.
Oh, is he killing the cats? The cool cats are suffering.
All three of us in different leagues with the Quentin Johnson 0.0 on 5 targets. I did look it up. Chris Chambers had 10 targets, 0 catches.
Wow.
Uh, that's
This is
that's
what
the
you're doing in London.
yeah, that's the record. That's how angry I was at Quentin Johnson. Uh, and I think Ocho Cinco had a 10 target, 0.02. But anyway,
That's going over big at the pub with the mates, huh?
the any of you guys have Quentin Johnson? No, you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. So the Falcons, man, I don't know, like, every week in our fantasy league, Shaq, is like Bijan is number 2 overall. Like, it's like the guy doesn't do anything. I mean, nothing. He gives you 5.5 fantasy points, and they don't move the ball. And Cousins, when Penix came in at the end of that blowout, was that against Denver? They didn't let Penix cook. The game was over, but you still had 2 drives worth of Penix, and they were like, "Why don't you hand off?" And I think it was because if you lead a long touchdown drive, now we do have a quarterback controversy. Like, if you just kind of mop it up, we can say Cousins is still the guy. But man, I don't know if Cousins is the guy. And I think this loss to the Chargers, who have the guy at quarterback, is gonna put even more doubt into the Cousins era. And when is it time for Michael Penix? Chargers by 10.
Man, that's interesting that you bring that up, because that's one of those conversations that we put a pin in August, that like, okay, so they have Michael Penix and his future is theoretically bright, but they just spent on Kirk Cousins. And I said to the two of you that I bet you Kirk Cousins is one and done in Atlanta. It just doesn't make sense. Why would they keep him? They're going to have to find a team that wants Kirk Cousins. But I'll tell you, look at the Giants, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, look at the Raiders. There are a bunch of teams that are probably going to be QB needy this offseason. So maybe that's the way.
Yeah. Jets need a QB.
Oh, yeah. I wonder where old A-Rod lands, too. That's a conversation for another time. Spaghetti, your pick for now.
Yeah, I'm going on a limb here. I mean, I always like to take home dogs here, and I just think back-to-back road losses, especially one in division, for the Falcons, are going to get back on track here. I just think that loss with the Chargers, mentioning Dobbins, mentioning the sloppiness from Quentin Johnston. I think not that they're nearly as good as the Ravens, but they're a similar approach. They're both a dynamic offense. They can run the ball, and they can kill you in the pass offense too. And I think the Falcons kind of get right in this game. I was really not impressed with the Chargers' O-line, and not like the Ravens' defense is that great either. So I just feel like there's a lot of things going wrong with the Chargers right now, and I think the Falcons get back on track, especially being home dogs here. So I like the Falcons winning a very, very, very close game.
Fascinating one, and what it tells us about both of these teams going forward, because both teams are probably going to be in the playoffs. Moving on, 2 teams that played each other in the playoffs quite a bit. I love my rivalries. I don't know if I've mentioned it before. I love the divisional rivalries. I love the cross-conference rivalries. And I love the mini era rivalries. And there were few better in pro football history than when Peyton's Colts and Brady's Patriots would hook up in January's past. Now it is a significantly diminished rivalry. Patriots, you remember though, Hench, when they were in the same division before Brady and Peyton and the Colts were in Indianapolis, when it was the Baltimore Colts and New England Patriots, they were weren't they the 2 worst teams once playing for the first overall pick?
Yeah, Joe
somewhere
Washington.
around 1980. When was it?
Yeah, it was the Joe Washington Monday night game on the slick turf. You had a kick return for a touchdown and a punt return for a touchdown.
That sounds right. Why was it always so shiny at Foxborough on Monday Night Football? When the lights were on, it looked like it was a sheet of ice, not a
glistening
field of artificial stuff.
And as kids, we never were like, we gotta lose this game and get the number 1 overall pick. As kids, you were like, I don't care what our record is. We're on national television. We got to win this game. And so I don't know. I can't remember if that was the Kenneth Sims draft pick or the Irving Fryer draft pick when the Pats got the number 1 overall pick. And
Irving Fryer would have been 83, I guess, would have been when he dropped the ball at the goal line in that magnificent Orange Bowl, the greatest college football game of all time. Oh, by the way, I didn't even give you a pick on this one. Colts and Patriots. The Colts will get this one. Who cares? They're an irrelevant team now. They've played themselves out of things. Although Anthony Richardson does look like he's starting to turn the corner as a pro quarterback. So that's something to feel good about. I don't think it's going to be enough for them to take down Bo Nix and the Broncos, who are really coming on, and that's all that matters really in the playoff chase here. I will say that the Colts win this one in a snoozer, 19-16. Hench, how say you?
Well, Drake May's been sticking to the script.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
Let me change that. 20-14. I will modify that one.
Okay. Drake May's been playing well and losing. That's the key. I think he messes up this week and plays well enough to win. I think the Pats get this one 24-21. Kid's a stud. He has no time to throw and he has no receivers. And he's starting in my super flex league as the second QB because he puts up numbers every week.
I get that all we're doing is sitting here and kind of sort of trying to predict what's going to happen. But game to game, 60 minutes, a play here or there, who knows what the result is. I don't take anyone to task too much for that. But what about these draft scouts who have watched like 5 years worth of these guys and they still can be not just wrong, but loudly wrong? I mean, there were people pounding the table. Their careers are devoted to analyzing student athletes and their worthiness at the next level. And there were guys you say like Drake May has no chance. I mean, like what in the hell? And then they never get taken to task and they'll be telling us next spring all about, no, Shador Sanders is definitely this or that, or, it really is weird that we just roll along with it. And it all depends on our collective amnesia. They're like, well, I don't know who else we're going to listen to about this ourselves. We watch the games, don't we? Unlike the coaches who vote in the coaches poll week after week in college football, we actually do see the high-end college football players. I think it's about time we start honoring ourselves a little bit. There's talk out there that we need a citizen media. At least we need citizen scouts out there doing their job. Right, Hench?
Well, I mean, it is weird that the experts are not better than the people. Like, I mean, certainly with the NFL draft.
Same hit rate, right.
And especially at QB, which is who nobody seems to be able to get it right. And I guess the question is, I mean, if you look like Caleb Williams has nice pieces. When you look at who Drake May is throwing to, I mean, hopefully none of those guys are on the field next year. Like, they're garbage. And the O-line is garbage. And it's like, and then you watch, like I was saying last week, the Stafford game, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua get open and catch everything. Like, the pass receivers don't get open and can't catch the ball. And yet he's still dazzling us.
It really is an exciting time. See, I gave the things I was thankful for in sports, Hench. You have a world champion in the NBA and your future. This is the sweet spot. You don't have to do anything. You can just watch like the game, be like, Drake May made a good throw. Who cares what the outcome of the play is, let alone the game? We got our guy. We got our guy. Next half decade, going to be a lot of fun around here. Good for you. Spaghetti, how do you see this one playing out?
Well, I was just saying I love home dogs. Pats are a home dog. The Colts clearly have the better roster, but they don't have the better quarterback. And Shek, you were saying you think Richardson's playing better as a pro. I mean, he was 11 for 28 last week. Like, he's very up and down. He had the one nice game versus the Jets. I don't think he's very good. And I think that Drake May clearly is the Pats have hit a home run. They have their guy for the future. This is a quarterback league. I know Gerard Mayo made some weird comments saying that, like, once the players cross that white line, like, he only thing he could do is prepare them. He can't do anything else beyond that. It's like, well, I think the coach has to prepare them a little bit better, and I think he will this week. And I think Drake May will make enough plays, kind of like Hench was saying, and I think they will win this game, a very, very close game, just because I think Anthony Richardson is just too volatile right now. You never know which way it's going to go, and I think he's going to cost his team. If Drake May was in that Colts roster, it's not a bad team at all. So I like the Pats in this one.
I hear you what you're saying. Again, like, Anthony Richardson is not Tom Brady. He's Josh Allen. That's all. He's, that's who he is. You can't, you just have to understand
I'd say
who he is.
I'd say he's Josh Dobbs.
I was trying to be glass half full about it, but yeah, I mean, he's not right. He's never going to throw. He's not going to have a completion percentage at 70% or anything like that. But his virtues are pretty apparent when you look at him. I guess that's why he was drafted.
He's
so
in
high.
the top 12 Joshes to ever play quarterback in the NFL. I'll give him that. Right above Josh Rosen.
I was trying to think how many Joshes could there possibly have been. All right, I speak about the mini rivalries.
Freeman,
a great
Josh
one.
Johnson.
All right. See, now if you want to play this game, then we're gonna have to play it.
I'm
And
done.
that's it. You're tapped out. Okay, I'm just gonna move on then. Um, Mini era rivalries, a good one, although it was one sided. Browns and Broncos. Elway kept beating Bernie and the rest of them Browns. I guess everybody beats the Browns in big games. The Broncos in this one laying 5.5. Sean Payton now validated, and boy, I don't know if you're really cynical. You could see that maybe Russ, we've seen the best of him at age 36, and he's going to look even more right as the next month unfolds here. Let's put that. I don't want to put that into the universe. Just cut that crap out. Instead, let's just talk about the Broncos here. Laying 5.5. Browns playing for nothing. They got their signature win. The rest is gravy. Maybe they have a devil may care attitude, but the Broncos really playing. I'm real tempted to go with Cleveland here because I think that the Jameis vibe is a real thing versus, I mean, coming off of the ugliness with Deshaun, there is a fun spirit to them. Now, it's not enough to go a mile high and take care of that team. Broncos win it 26-17. Hench, how say you?
I think it is enough. I completely agree with you on the
Huh?
Jameis vibe. And it's like, Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and Njoku, you shouldn't be moving the ball, but Jameis has a vibe. I don't know. Like, he's made Jeudy a much better player.
Yeah.
Chubb's yet to break one, but there are little signs that he's starting to get to the next level of the post-injury moment. And, I not having anything to play for obviously helps them. Just being this spoiler. And even though I agree it's the self-promotion isn't great, Garrett's a game wrecker, man. He cannot be blocked. And I think the Browns get it outright, 24-23.
That made me sick when he strip sacked Russ. Russ was a little loose with the ball, and Garrett knocked it out of his mitts and was validated by all that. Congratulations, Miles. What a class act. Spaghetti, how say you?
Yeah, this one's simple for me. I mean, we're never going to reach the peak, the highs of the highs, like we saw with Jameis last week in the snow. Just jumping over the goal line, like that's the Jameis special. I think the best case scenario for the Browns in this game is what's going to happen is they're going to keep the game close. They're going to maybe get a garbage time touchdown, get it within that 5.5, 5 wherever it lies. You may go up to 6. So I would take the Browns in the points, but I think just Bo Nix is playing a lot better as of late. Finally had a 300-yard passing game, a bunch of passing touchdowns the last few weeks. I just think that the Broncos are kind of going into an actual contender mode kind of right now. But as Shek, you always point out, it's like the curse is supposed to. It's a prime time game. There is now pressure mounting on them, and that's why I think the Browns will keep it close. Broncos win. Browns cover.
Yeah, now all of a sudden the script is flipped, and maybe America can start to sort of like the Cinderella Browns, the tragic comedy that they are. If in fact they can move on from Watson in the offseason, they'll be all the way back to where they are, just the lovable losers. Black Friday, last game. Let's pick this one quickly here. I didn't say silver and Black Friday. In fact, it's going to be red and gold, Arrowhead, all the rest of it. Although here we are. And I bring it up because this is the reason I want to spend a second on this one. The Chiefs cannot cover more than 7 points. And now they're laying 13. But Gardner Minshew is out for the season. And the Raiders are abject garbage now. And you could have seen a mile away. I get the good vibes. Talk about good vibes that are short term. The Antonio Pierce thing a year ago, I'm sorry to be a curmudgeon. You knew this wasn't going to work out. What were you doing, right? What were you doing? This was not something that could sustain itself in the 21st century NFL. Chiefs laying 13, and the total is 42.5. I mean, I can't see a path that the Raiders would keep this within 3 touchdowns, especially. I know you can sort of what the trend is that the Chiefs don't whip anybody. So why would this game be any different? But the embarrassment of barely beating Carolina, I think, has to spur them, right? Don't they have to be like, enough's enough, fellas? We got to show everybody. But then again, I know they don't give a crap about showing anybody anything because they've already shown the world that they're the best team in football time and again. So there isn't that motivation that, say, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have coming off of a stinker in Pittsburgh to say, like, we got to remind everybody. I don't think the Chiefs operate that way, but I'm just talking practically X's and O's and all of that. The Chiefs have to smoke them, and so they will. It's 30-10. Hench, how say you?
Ah, our garage. We're in the same garage. I mean, the Chiefs were beaten in Buffalo and then almost beaten in Carolina. I don't, they really kind of go through the motions, but this week going through the motions against that team is going to be enough to cover that big number. I have it 27-10. How do the Raiders score? I mean, it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs are bored. Like, when do the games matter? But this week it won't matter that they're bored because they're just playing such a crappy team.
I I think we do this every year, Hench, but it feels I always talk about the perennial amnesia. It really does. Like, I know the Packers are coming, and you said them last week that if somebody was going to be a disruptor to the NFC title game that we all assume is coming, Philly and Detroit, it would be the Packers. But I mean, it really does feel like on the AFC side, it's going to be the Chiefs and the Bills or the Ravens are going to take a run at them. And then there might be, who knows what else, but it's really going to be the usual customers doing that. And it's all about the past deeds that the Chiefs, it's like, I know everybody wants to take their shots at them, but they're bored, but they're pacing themselves. It doesn't feel like the
Exactly.
Ravens and Bills are pacing themselves to anything. It's that they know they have something to prove, and the Chiefs know these games don't really matter, and the Bills and Ravens know these games don't really matter. But there is a swagger that obviously is owed to being able to beat those teams in January. Boy, oh boy, I'm not going to talk myself into the Bills or Ravens or anyone else this year, even though the Chiefs do not look as mighty as they have been in the past. Spaghetti, how say you?
I hate myself for doing this because last
Do
week I
it.
was like, Chiefs they lose that game. They get in the Panthers here. They're going to stomp out the Bryce Young 2.0 experiment here. That didn't happen. Then you think, all right, this game's Black Friday. The Chiefs are home. Like the crowd's going to be riled up. Gardner Minshew's out. There's really no running game to speak of, all the injuries. But I could definitely see this game being a 3-point game at halftime. Like, with Chiefs up, the Chiefs are going to win this game, obviously. And let's not forget, too, Gardner Minshew was benched originally this year for Aiden O'Connell. I think this is going to be the Brock Bowers show. He's going to play the game nice and simple, nice and easy. No pressure on O'Connell anymore because he will have the starting job sans injury the rest of the year. And it goes back to the Chiefs just sleepwalking. And I don't know why they're messing around with the Panthers the way they did. Again, no, they're not going to lose this game, but I could see this game being within 13, 14 points, wherever the number lands. So I can't believe I'm going to say take the Raiders in the points, but I'm going to do it.